Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Quiet Riot.
Hello and welcome to a special Quiet Riot Midnight Mass. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Alex.
It is the evening of Monday, 20th of July, 2026, and newly minted Prime Minister Andy Burnham has been busy clearing out Keir's cabinet. A slew of appointments has been announced on which we have some thoughts. So we wanted to jump on the microphones to give you our initial reactions. More sober analysis will doubtless follow in our main show on Thursday.
I'm talking to Vicky Price tomorrow, our regular economics expert, to get her view on what the appointment of Healey as Chancellor means in terms of economics. So you will probably get that on Wednesday morning before the main episode. Now, before we begin, another reminder to head into the show notes and find the link to buy tickets to our live show, which is now only 10 days away on the 30th of July at the Leicester Square Theatre in Soho. It is now genuinely becoming sold out, so it's about 2/3 gone. We'll be together with our friends Rick Wilson and Maya May of the Lincoln Project and Peter Jukes and Hardip Mataru of Byline Time. So it's going to be a big old party.
It really is, and it'll be an extra late night party if you are a Ko-Fi backer who has bought tickets to the show. If you have, drop us an email to quietriotpod@gmail.com to find out which pub we'll be in after the curtain closes.
So, Naomi, there's comings and goings on Downing Street. We have the feed watching it in the background. I think someone just went in. I think that was
Bridget Phillipson, I think.
Yeah, Bridget Phillipson, Education Secretary. My guess was that she would keep that brief. We'll see if I was right. And there are 2 or 3 people in there who have been in there for a while.
Yeah. Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper, Pat McFadden. I think they've been in there now for quite a long time.
Lucy Powell just walking in.
Let's start with what we do know.
Yeah, let's start with this morning. Let's start with Starmer's departure.
It is vital that we remember the greatness of the Britain all around us. That while we debate how to fix our problems, there is something we inherit from our country and our character that can give us confidence. That we can change our country for the better. That we can create a Britain where every child can go as far as their talent will take them. And we can unite different people under our common flag if we don't succumb to that division. So as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support. I go with good grace, I go with a smile, and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
So, what did you think of it? I thought it was quite jolly, really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got a nice long hot summer ahead of him now. He can chill out, relax, and put the last few months of sort of harrowing internal stuff behind him. It was as dignified as these things can be. And then, of course, very starkly contrasted by Burnham's acceptance speech, no notes, no podium, no lectern, and managing to pull that off without hesitation.
Yeah, despite Steve Bray still playing stuff in the background, even though he was meant not to. I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on the superficial side of not having a lectern and notes and having a roving mic, but do you think it carried some significance? Do you think it was meant to signal that this is actually going to be change? This is what you were expecting in 2024, but didn't happen.
Well, I think, and we are no exception to it, a lot of the friendly fire has come from critics around the comms. So obviously there were points of substance that we didn't agree with Starmer on, and there was stuff that we thought they did brilliantly and did not shout about. Minimum wage being a chief one I often come back to. So few people credit Starmer's
Yeah.
government with being the people that got it for them. So he had no option but to very, very visibly and audibly, obviously, demonstrate that, look, this is the thing I am bloody good at by comparison.
Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan, laying out a path from where we are now to where I believe we all want Britain to be, wherever we're coming from, whatever party we support. But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them. We will help more young people into work by changing the education system and giving them more support, more mental health support. And we will build more council homes. That is the fair and sustainable way to bring the welfare bill down, to meet our fiscal rules and to honour our commitments on defence to our international partners.
And job done on that front. I mean, we knew it anyway, but he didn't miss a beat today. And even when he gave his leadership acceptance speech last week, what I found so refreshing was that when he did stumble a little bit, as people do, humans do when they're communicating in public, it didn't faze him. He just picked up where he left off and went back in for it. Whereas the more robotic, less natural orators that we've seen from Starmer and Reeves in particular look petrified and frightened when they muck up a word or forget their train of thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think it has signalled to the country now, not just the party faithful, that I am more human and more able to connect with people where they are.
I mean, look, I'll be super honest. I admired the fact that he went off script several times in that acceptance speech, but the speech did sag a little bit when he went off script. So I think he's got a very good scriptwriter who know what they're doing and should stick to it more closely. Because while I like his ability to go off script a little bit, the script did lose its thread and its sort of momentum when he did that. But, that's by the by. And then came really a series of resignations stroke sackings.
That's right, yeah.
That's the next thing that happened.
Well, we've heard that Rachel Reeves was offered another role and turned it down. The rumour is she was offered defence. Now, I suppose her first question would have been, well, who are you giving my job to? And if he had fessed up that it was Healey, which we now know it is, that would have been extremely difficult for her, given his resignation letter as Defence Minister a month or so ago, saying it is the Treasury that have blocked us from, keeping the country safe. So that may have been the point at which she said, absolutely not. Farewell, I'm off to have a nice long hot summer. So that was a really big first one, but of course there have been a string of others.
I think emotionally she had decided that she needed a break several days ago when she sat behind Starmer in the Commons. It seemed to me that she had internalized the idea that fuck this, basically. I'm off on a holiday, I've earned it, and boy, she has. And I think she's going to have the best holiday anyone's ever had in the world.
Well, I hope
to be
so.
honest.
Yeah.
And was never going to accept anything because all of it would be a step down from Chancellor. I think the media would continue to target her, and so my impression was when I saw her back then that she's off, whether she's offered something or not.
Potentially. Yeah.
I also heard a rumor that Steve Reed had something floated to him and basically ghosted the number 10 and simply put out his resignation letter, which was the one that was more stinging, I think, than or the others. It was of all the resignation letters, the one that sort of crossed its arms, sucked air through its teeth, and went, "Let's see you then."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, he was extremely close to Keir Starmer right to the bitter end, so that's perhaps unsurprising. Then I guess there are some that are, relatively unexpected. Richard Hermer, Attorney General, also went. He was the only person that did that on Blue Sky rather than X, because, of course, he made quite a big thing about taking himself and his department off X a few weeks ago. Peter Kyle resigns from Business and Trade. David Lammy.
I think Kyle was sacked, actually.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So Lammy, Kyle, Hermer, Kendall, Joe Stevens, Darren Jones, all told that they weren't being given jobs in the new government. Hilary Benn also. So some really massive household names that a lot of people would know, given that most people haven't got a clue who any politician is really. Some of those obviously incredibly well known, all out. And Nick Thomas Simmons, who obviously from my Best for Britain position is the role that is most critical for what we're trying to campaign on, having led those EU-UK negotiations on behalf of Keir Starmer with Maros Šefčovič. He also is out, and we don't yet know, of course, who's going to be taking on that brief.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, he is out, which I'm not wholly surprised by, because I think if you are negotiating on the EU side, you want to know that the person you're negotiating with is a very key ally of the PM. Is this really the PM's person that I'm talking to? Can they speak on behalf and agree things on behalf of the PM? Nick Thomas Simmons so attached to the Starmer premiership that I suspect from Andy Burnham's position, he knew he had to make a switch in that role.
I am a little surprised by a couple of those. I'm a little surprised by Nick Thomas Simmons, simply because he occupied a brief that is very technical and will take someone a long time to read in. And there's a summit that's meant to be imminently rescheduled. So I don't understand entirely the logic of that. I don't fully get why Hilary Benn has been moved from Northern Ireland. That's
he served under Blair, he served under Brown, and under Starmer. So
I know. I really don't
jobs,
get that. Yeah,
and therefore, I think I'm reinforcing your point. Proof that he can and will work with different shades of the Labour Party.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get the precise logic of.
What about Liz Kendall?
I mean, Liz Kendall was always going to be a goner, I think.
Yeah.
To be honest, there are 3 or 4 people, I think, in there. I mean, this can look like a wave of getting rid of Starmer loyalists, basically, is one reading of it. And it may well be the correct reading of it. But there is another reading of it, which suggests that without getting rid of someone like Rachel Reeves and Liz Kendall, and David Lammy, there can't be a reset. That they were so visible, such a visible part of the Starmer administration, that Andy Burnham would look like he came in and just moved a couple of people around. It wouldn't look like real change. And so I guess he might have chosen the ones that he definitely wanted to keep, people like Yvette Cooper, with whom he has a very, very long relationship, and basically had to get rid of enough of other big names to signal that there's new management, rather than a straightforward factional sacking of people who were loyal to Starmer simply because they were loyal to Starmer, if you see what I mean. Those two things are qualitatively quite different in intention, aren't they?
Yes, and remember, he also has said that he wants Labourism to be at the heart of how he governs, so not factionalism within the broader tribe. And so one would have hoped that maybe a kind of Blairite figure like Darren Jones, who has performed well, has certainly been a
Darren Jones, I really don't get.
To the media, exactly. I completely agree. I don't get why he would be out, but he is. But almost certainly Cooper and Mahmood stay. He couldn't sack 3 women from the top jobs. Not sure what's going to happen to Cooper yet, but clearly Mahmood couldn't be moved at that stage. So there is some signal that there is a broader than Burnhamism tent being kept in post. But he's going to need to appoint a southerner soon, because at the moment this is a very, very from the Midlands up cabinet.
Yeah, and also, you know, he has sacked the most senior gay person, he has sacked the most senior black person.
Yeah.
And so far, with the exception of Shabana Mahmood, it's just been a parade of white northern people
Yeah.
walking into Downing Street. So that can begin to look a little bit factional rather than broad-based. But,
Yeah.
you know, we'll see what happens. Like I said, there are 2 or 3 in there that I think we don't know the full story, frankly. There could be people in there that went, look, I really need a break,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because the last couple of years have been intense.
Yeah, and then of course there are the people who were switched out in the last Starmer reshuffle that left us all scratching our heads over why. So we had Johnny Reynolds being moved from Department from Business to Trade to Chief Whip, even though arguably he was doing a very good job at DBT, particularly around steel. I expect he will be possibly brought back into that post.
Or maybe put into defence, who knows?
Potentially, yeah. And I wanted to really take your pulse on Healey as Chancellor. I mean, first of all, can we just take a moment to laugh at the media? How wrong did they get that?
Did I not say that it seemed to me they were throwing darts at a dartboard?
Absolutely.
I mean, they were so convinced that it would be either Miliband or Mahmood until quite recently. And then for the last really 4 or 5 days, it's been almost as if Mahmood was a confirmed appointment.
Yep.
You know, the BBC anchor was saying, when Shabana Mahmood walks into number 11 through that door, what will her economic policies be? You know, he did a whole interview on the premise that Shabana Mahmood was such a shoo-in that we needed to understand her financial sort of strategy.
And the FT, you know, the FT were, you know, gleeful that she would shore up the markets as well, and have done podcasts on it and everything.
Quiet Riot. Quiet Riot.
Fiscal control is the first duty of any Chancellor. It is mine. And fiscal credibility is the bedrock for economic stability and for national security. And you heard the Prime Minister this afternoon say, in this more dangerous world, we will meet our commitments on defence to our international allies.
Obviously, I will talk at length to Vicky Pryce tomorrow about the economic shades of that appointment. But what do you think of it as a piece of, I guess, party management?
Well, my first point is back to what you were saying about the media. He was so underpriced that this morning you could get 100-to-1 odds on Betfair on Healey. And so my main thing is annoyed that I didn't put money on this morning. So that I'm kicking myself over.
And I think Anne McElvoy tipped him maybe like 2-3 weeks ago, said that it would be quite an interesting appointment to put him in a position to find the money that he says defence needs.
So I think this is all part of Andy's reindustrialization program, and that reindustrialization will focus very heavily on defense and the military industrial complex. So I think it's a neat fit with that vision, and I expect to see those good jobs in the north of England, in Scotland, etc., that have been talked about, coming from that sector first and foremost. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, for a piece of party management, I guess it's about aligning your song and your dance. And people can say something and do another. Well, this seems to fit with the I'm going to say something and then do it. But beyond that, not sure we know a huge amount about his economics, but we do know his internationalism. Obviously, as Defence Secretary, he has travelled extensively, particularly in and across Europe because of Ukraine. So he will have a very, very good understanding about where member state capitals are on issues around cooperation between the UK and the EU. So I'm relatively hopeful, and I'm definitely happier that it's him than I would have been if it had been Shabnam Mahmood, because she is a Eurosceptic. Now, I know you've said anywhere but the Home Office is better because of her position on immigration, but that's where he's chosen to keep her. What do you make of all of that then?
Well, so first of all, on John Healey, I think it's interesting what you say, because those relationships he will have formed across Europe will have been more financial in nature than any defense secretary before him, because there was
Well, in modern
the
times, yeah.
participation of the SAFE, the participation of the SAFE scheme was up for grabs. He's done a treaty with Norway, he's done a treaty with Poland, he's done a bilateral with France, he's done a bilateral with Ukraine, and so trade and finance was always a part of that defense brief. And I hadn't thought of it the way you just described it, that it's about actually tying the reindustrialization into the defense brief. And that makes perfect sense. And it makes perfect sense, actually, specifically for Healey, because he does have a background in
That's
the
right,
Treasury.
yeah.
He was in
Yeah,
the
long
Treasury
time ago,
for,
yeah.
I think, 6-7 years by the side of Brown. And his brief was specifically actually reindustrialization and devolution. Like, he did a lot of work on devolved regions. And also before that, his background as a politician is in the trade union movement. So he worked for one of the big trade unions. I can't remember off the top of my head which, but then moved to the TUC and worked for the Trade Union Congress for several years before entering politics. And so the unions will be relatively happy.
One
with
thing I
that,
would
guess.
just ever so slightly pick you up on, only because I think our listeners will. I know what you meant, but the turn of phrase that the SAFE, the Security Action for Europe Defence Fund, was up for grabs, it wasn't, and that was the bloody problem. And lots of other Northern European countries were keen but did not see the French coming. And obviously the offer that was put to the UK was not acceptable, and I think Brussels would now concede that. But other than that, I completely agree with everything you said.
I accept that. All I meant was that it was a possibility,
Yeah. And
even
what I
though
think,
turned out to be a mirage, it
that's
was a
right.
possibility throughout his time. And then he had to find sort of
Exactly.
alternative bilateral ways of sort of replacing that
And it will
network
have
around
taught
it.
him that we didn't do enough work with member states, that we didn't do enough to make sure that Poland and Germany and the Netherlands and the Danes and the Swedes and whoever else were solidly batting for us and ready to push back on France. So I think that would have been a really good lesson for him, because obviously as Chancellor, he
Yeah.
is going to have a lot of conversations about our relationship with Europe.
So I don't mind that as an appointment. I think that's quite smart. It's also quite a nice piece of signalling to the factions to say that if you really go for each other and brief against each other, neither of you is getting it. Someone else, a compromise figure, will come through the middle. I'm not going to reward the infighting, and so I think that's also an interesting piece of signaling to find a way to not give the win of getting Chancellor to either faction.
But Mahmood, how are you feeling about that then?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
terrible. I mean, I think she's the worst person to have in the Home Office. Everything about her, her approach to it is hostile environment. She makes me feel
Unwelcome.
insecure as a migrant in this country. Not just unwelcome, she makes me feel insecure. She makes me feel like she could turn around at any point and just go, I don't care about your settled status, bye-bye. Or, because it's that kind of toxic approach of considering basically anyone foreign as having lesser rights and lesser access to a sort of rule of law approach and the certainty of building their life in this country. And
And
so
you asked me
I
about
don't
party
like that.
management with the appointment of Healey, and I think as a piece of party management, this is poor. The majority of the members will not like this approach. They will not have backed her over her immigration plans. I don't think many of the PLP are particularly supportive of it either. And certainly the progressive voters that have been attracted by the SNP and the Greens, and to an extent the Liberal Democrats' much more open worldview on immigration, um, and anyone who understands basic economics will not
Mm.
be so willing to back Andy Burnham as they would have been if he had shown that
Yeah.
marked departure from the Starmer administration.
My only little point of light, my bit of hope, my silver lining, is that we're coming out of a period of really 2 years of Sunak, followed by 2 years of Starmer, where basically the leadership has been managerial, and maybe Burnham is not like that. So what do I mean? Maybe Burnham does have ideas about immigration, ideas about how the topic should be treated, what the tone of the department should be, that he will impose on Mahmoud in the way that most prime ministers in the past would. Most prime ministers in the past would set the tone for those big areas and then give the brief to someone to make it reality. They wouldn't just say, this is your baby, you can set whatever tone you like. And the vibe I get from Burnham is that he has definite ideas. I mean, he has an immigrant wife.
So does Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
But yes.
True. But maybe what I'm saying is that maybe her leash will be considerably shorter than we've been used to seeing. We've been used to seeing quite a lot of freelancing.
Well, that was my point. Yeah.
Especially from Home
She doesn't
Secretaries.
hold the power over Burnham that she did over Starmer. His position had been precarious for a while. And if he had been unhappy with something she wanted to do, he had very little leverage over her, because she could have turned around and said, I can probably muster several dozen Blue Labour MPs from within the PLP, if not a few more, and hold that over him. She's not going to have that leverage over Burnham at all. So let's see. And it really will depend on the full makeup of the cabinet. And that's, how I like to view it. Last time around, I felt that I broadly had a majority Europhile cabinet. That's what I'm, from my professional perspective, going to be looking at over the next 24 hours. Do I have more allies than detractors around the cabinet table on the issue that I care about? And hopefully on the issue of immigration.
Which brings us to Ed Miliband for Foreign and
That's
Commonwealth
right,
Office.
indeed. Not many people saw that coming a month ago, but it had been relatively well trailed that one of the Milibands would get that job, and he's plumped for Ed. He did a very good job at Desnes. I mean, I think everybody felt that if there was one minister who had got what he'd wanted and had managed to win arguments around the cabinet table over securing what he wanted to do, it was him. He kind of stayed away from much of the negative press that had subsumed the Starmer government and had victories. And now he goes into one of the great offices of state and will be our main man sent to Brussels, Washington, Beijing, and elsewhere. Can you see him performing well on the international stage?
Look, he's very experienced. He has access to good advice. He gave a very short statement coming out of Downing Street that was along the lines of, I will try to project Labour values on the international stage. And that, to me, is a coded way of agreeing with Burnham that we got it wrong on Palestine at the start, and also endorsing the view that we're fully behind Ukraine. As a matter of fact, I think he said that explicitly in that short statement. There has been a lot of signaling in that direction, which makes me feel good.
It's the honour of my life to have been asked by the Prime Minister to be the Foreign Secretary of our country. My parents came here as Jewish refugees fleeing from the Nazis, and for them Britain provided sanctuary and a beacon of hope in the fight against fascism. At a time when values of democracy, the rule of law and freedom are under threat as never before, I will carry that spirit, their spirit, into my work as Foreign Secretary.
And he gets to talk to Trump about the fact that wind farms are actually great.
The Zelensky apparently was the second call.
Great.
The first one being Trump, who apparently talked to Andy Burnham about the World Cup and also the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, it will be fascinating to see how that relationship unfolds over time. My very early instinctive notion is that basically Trump thinks Burnham is Armamdani, because when he was asked whether he knew anything about him, he said he's mayor of a town, I think he said. He's mayor of a big town and he's extremely liberal. So I think in his head, Burnham is kind of our version of Mamdani.
That's funny.
Quiet Riot. Quiet Riot.
Well, while we've been recording, Alex, 2 appointments have been made. Now, you may have remembered Angela Rayner had been tipped to be Health Secretary. That is not happening. That is Yvette Cooper. And Pat McFadden has been reappointed, not to Chief Whip, as you predicted, but he's staying at DWP.
Okay. So
there we go. Yvette Cooper at Health. Well, she's done a lot of the big offices. This is another one.
Yeah.
And certainly, one would consider that a sideways move, if not a slight demotion from Foreign Secretary. But I've never
but
really
health
had
is an important brief, really,
very,
isn't it?
very, very important, and particularly when it comes to devolution.
And I also don't think she particularly enjoyed Foreign Secretary. Like I heard from someone who works in her, not immediate, but sort of secondary environment, if that makes sense, that she really didn't like all the travel. She didn't like being away from her husband and her family for long stretches. And so I think this will suit her very well. No streeting.
No. Well, he was allegedly photographed in tears leaving Andy Burnham's office last week in the lift going back down to the ground floor. So I think maybe he's known for a while he wasn't going to be rewarded for helping get rid of Starmer. Pat McFadden being reappointed to DWP. I mean, I think he probably did quite like that role. And he certainly had the bit between his teeth over those not in employment, educational training, wanting to do something with the Milburn Review, obviously as a Blairite, very close to Alan Milburn, and will want to try and see some of those reforms through, I'm sure. So he'll probably be relatively happy with keeping that job and staying in post.
I mean, I think Labour have to reform the benefit system because it's a mess at the moment, to be honest. It really forces people into trying to game it in order to get what they need out of it, because the system is so poor that it's impossible for you to get what you need out of it unless you sort of play the game of what box do I tick where. And then that reflects badly on the system because it's like loads of people are gaming it. And because
only if you're well enough to play the game. I mean, that's the big problem.
Sure, but you know what I mean? The point is, it bulges in weird places at times. And that's because it's so poorly designed that people who should be getting another benefit are basically funneled into a benefit that's ill-fitting for them. And then someone looks at the stats and goes, wow, what happened here? How did the number of people on this thing just double in the space of 2 years? And it's because
you closed the other route. Yeah.
The whole thing is so poorly designed that if you close one, people need what people need. And ultimately, they're going to get it. And so I think there does need to be reform, but it has to start from the place of saying we need to help people get what they need in order to live a dignified life or get back to work, whichever is appropriate. And it has to be done not as a cost-cutting measure, because actually, to start with, it will probably cost money and then save a lot of money in the long run, as I've said often. But also, there's a third reason. I think Labour have got themselves into such a bad situation now that benefits reform will have to get through the Commons in order to demonstrate that they can be disciplined as a party.
Well, the other thing we didn't touch on when we talked about Andy Burnham's speech, of course, was the only policy announcement we really got, which was eradicating rough sleeping and homelessness. And he mentions mental health as part of that problem when talking about it. So I think, to your point about giving people what they need, what we are hearing in the early stages from Burnham is that more compassionate approach and that realistic understanding of what is driving some of these social ills, whether it is young people not being able to access employment and training, whether it is people sleeping rough on the streets. And so hopefully that is a good signal of the direction of travel.
We will help people to live well, building a more preventative state, investing in people's success rather than paying for failure. And that work starts now. I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country. It's about putting the right values and the right standards at the heart of government. I will put the care of people at the heart of everything I do. I will give this my all, and I ask you all to pull with me. Let's build a new national sense of unity, of common purpose and positivity. Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again, the moment we bring back hope.
Now, we've been recording for a while. It's late. Of course, we do know that Lou Haig has got a big job. So she is Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. That's basically a fancy job title for Minister without portfolio, but is also First Secretary of State. Now, that's a bit more interesting. It's sort of used interchangeably with Deputy Prime Minister. Probably means she'll step in for him at PMQs when he's travelling.
Yeah. Because it's a position, I think, that the person who took over from Johnson when he was in intensive care had.
Dominic Raab.
Yeah, because he didn't have a deputy prime minister. So I think we're going back to that version. But I mean, she's basically Gove to his Cameron or Mandelson to his Blair. It's that kind of powerful, central, at the center of the web of government, basically, feeling every chord vibrate and feeding back information. And so I think she will be good at that. And just one last thing, I wanted to say something about what you said about the announcement, the first policy announcement being eradicate homelessness. Starmer's first policy announcement was cutting the winter fuel allowance. And I think that's such a sharp contrast in the sense of setting himself out in a presentational way to say, this is what I'm about. It's such a smart and media savvy thing to do, to say that, I have one thing I'm going to get in motion straight away, and that's eradicate homelessness.
And it is something you feel, when you talk about growth or GDP or cutting the deficit, or that's not something people can tangibly feel or visibly see in their mind's eye. Whereas homelessness is horrific for those who are homeless, but it is a stain on the whole country. It is such a visual symbol of our decline and mismanagement for anyone visiting our country. And it all feeds into this sort of downward spiral of a country going in the wrong direction, not the right. So, I think it is something that the ordinary person tuning into the 10 o'clock news will be like, it would be good if there weren't so many people in cardboard boxes under the bridge.
Yeah, and it ties with mental health. It ties into veterans. It ties into so many areas that are really
Addiction.
quite important. And it was a good signal to give. Anyway, so these are our early thoughts. A lot more on the economic side in 24 hours when you will get my conversation with Vicky Pryce, and much, much more on the complete shape of the cabinet in our regular episode where we are joined by
Josiah Mortimer from Byline Times. Yeah.
Josiah Mortimer, whom we've wanted to have on the podcast for a long time because we greatly admire his work on
Oh, he has
reform.
been doing more than anyone, really, and lots of people have been doing good work to dig into reform.
Yeah, which is, let me tease, it's no surprise, that's what B-side will be on this
Yeah.
week, his work on reforms funding. And so I guess by Thursday we will know a lot more about this, because really we need to see what sits beneath this high structure, because at the moment it's all a little bit center-right leaning, a little bit straight and white and northern and English. Let's see what comes below that, because if this replicates further down, then it might be a problem. But if what comes under this top layer are young people with loads of fresh ideas, then maybe it gives it a different flavor, right?
And we wait with bated breath to find out whether our friend Miata Farnborough has been given a nice big job that she so deserves.
Miata.
I'd like to see her heading up DESNAS.
Okay, all right.
All right, well, that is your lot for this evening, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in at this ungodly hour.
We'll be back on Thursday with the main show. Vicky Pryce slightly before that. So until then, stay hydrated, and we love you lots and lots. Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese. Quiet Riot is a co-production with Soundstone Global.
Quiet Riot.
I suppose the only regret I've ever had in football is that they never saw me at my peak. I would have loved to have played here at my peak. You know, I mean, I'm just a little bit over the top now.
Yeah, you've always said you're unemotional, but there were tears at the end, weren't there?
Yeah, well, it's never, you know, it's difficult. I hope whatever I've given Tyneside, it's given me 100 times as much. It gave me a boost when I needed it most after the World Cup, and I just thank the people up here. And I hope I'm always their friend. I can tell them one thing, they'll always be my friends up here, you know. I thank them very much.